Good morning, and thank you for being here. Yuan Peng, President of China Institute of Contemporary International Relations. Welcome to the Institute for Economic Research. I am very pleased to be here today for the opening of this conference, Foreign Policy of China. I just read the article, Sino-American Relations, New Change and New Challenges. Like an example of foreign policy of China, I was reflecting about the complexity about the relations between the two countries, US and China. This relation has been a mixture of cooperation relations, can be neither too good nor too bad. I am sure that after this conference, we can understand very well the different approaches employed by China to interact with US and other countries. I hope that all of you enjoy this conference. This is a special event that organized, and we have a special invite. And I think that we understand and we learn about the foreign policy of China. Welcome to the Institute, and that's all. Thank you.
My name is Francisco Trigo. I'm Vice Provost for International Relations of UNAM. Thank you very much for the reception here at this Institute of Economic Research. We certainly appreciate your kindness to receive President Yuan Peng from CICIR. Let me tell you that UNAM has had a long relationship with CICIR, the China Institute for International Relations. Is a think tank giving expertise advice to the Chinese government, having institutes particularly on social sciences, and they investigate throughout the world the relationship of China. Obviously, one of the main interests of CICIR is Latin America, being such an important trade partner, and they are coming just in this visit to Latin America after staying in Chile and in Brazil because of the future visit of President Xi Jinping to those countries. And they are finishing here with us at UNAM. Particularly why at UNAM? Because we have had this relationship with them, and we have seminars on yearly basis, one in China, one here. So the relation has been growing on quite productive over the years. This morning, President Yuan Peng just signed again the agreement of cooperation with UNAM for another 5 years. We certainly appreciate that. This institute, even though is devoted to research, let me tell you that they have a PhD program in these issues of socioeconomic politics throughout the world. And we were talking this morning about the possibility of having a dual diploma degree between UNAM and CICIR, which will be a good added value for the PhD student for both countries to have this dual recognition of our PhD programs. So it's really a great pleasure for UNAM and for this institute to have President Yuan Peng being such an important person, having a global view of China politics. He will talk about the actual trends of China politics and economic policy. And later, very important, with the forum will be open for discussion, for your questions. This is a wonderful opportunity. This is not a public event. This is an event by invitation. That's why you've been very well received here because of your presence. And after the talk of President Yuan Peng, the forum will be open to have an open, warm discussion and to explore future policies of China. And I think the comments that President Yuan Peng make to us will be quite helpful to understand much better the actual situation of China in the world. So President Yuan Peng, a pleasure to have you here, and the floor is yours to have your remarks.
Thank you, Professor Trigo, and also Professor Lava for the invitation to this very high prestigious place. And as a president of KICAR, and we are very pleased and honored to resign the cooperation agreement this morning with Ulan, and we're very much look forward to the future cooperation between Kikar and Ulan, just like China and Mexico. And this time, actually, I led a delegation to visit 3 countries: Brazil, Chile, and this is the last stop. And as Professor Trigo just mentioned, that the last 2 countries visit is for our president's coming visit. Next month, going to Chile for the summit of APEC, and then to Brazil for the BRICS. And maybe next week, Brazilian President Bolsonaro is going to visit China. So our trip to those 2 countries is for know some details, so that to provide some policy analysis recommendations to President Xi's coming visit. And to Mexico, I think 2 specific reasons for this visit. The most important reason to redefine the relations between Kikar and Ulan, sign agreement. And also we want to learn from you several important issues. Number 1, how to deal with our common friends, the United States. You have just have a USMCA agreement and border issues. How we have a trade war. Maybe we are in the same situation. I don't know which country's situation better. Maybe you, because you know American much more than we Chinese. So yesterday we went to Mexico College and city. We have a very good discuss how to exchange our experiences and lessons to deal with the United States. In particular, the Donald Trump's administration, which is unprecedented for both of us. So we have lots of potential cooperation in that area, which is not our major cooperation area. But maybe in the future, we can have more time to discuss that. And also another topic is that how to deepen China-Mexico relations in a new era. Because when we visited Brazil and Chile, most of scholars and officials complain that it seems China-Latin American relations just 2 areas. One is investment, one is trade, no others. So maybe it's time for us to upgrade the relations from just trade, investment, to political, to people to people, to think tank, to university to university. Even we can discuss the future international order, the reconstruction. So today I was asked to give a speech on Chinese foreign policy. This is a very big topic. We have a limitation of the time. So maybe I just share 2 topics. Just Professor Jock showed me his notes. In his mind, maybe 2 topics he's want to know most. 100% the same. With my not slides, I was thinking which topics should I talk. Maybe number 1 is the U.S.-China trade war or U.S.-China relations in general. Number 2 is maybe One Belt, One Road initiative, which is not still that clear in the region here. I start from U.S.-China relations. You know, this year is the 40th anniversary of the normalization of U.S.-China relations. Our relations was fully normalized in 1979, right after Deng Xiaoping decided reform and opening up policy, almost the same. So without Deng Xiaoping's great decision for opening up and reform, I don't think U.S.-China relations could be normalized during that time. And also without the normalization of the relations, we cannot imagine how can we open up to the outside world. So Chinese opening up and can you hear? So those two great events, happened almost simultaneously. I mean, Chinese opening up and reform and the normalization of the U.S. and China relations. So in the last 40 years, those two are all achieved very great outcome. The opening up and reform succeed because China now becoming number 2 economy, becoming a powerful country from a poor, closed-door country to a number 2 economy, thanks to the opening up and reform policy. And also, U.S.-China relations is quite successful because we are totally different. We have different social system, political system, geographical potential problem, Taiwan issue, or different civilization. However, in the past 40 years, we didn't have hot war. We didn't even have Cold War. And the trade amount from $2.5 billion US in 1979 up to $630 billion US this year. And Chinese students studying in the United States now more than 500,000 Chinese students now studying in different American universities. So it's amazing. Confucian institution, in the States, more than 110. So if you go beyond just trade war, you can see the overall relations is quite amazing. So my conclusion is that in the past 40 years, generally speaking, the relation is good. It's not that bad. But why all of a sudden now becomes so problematic? I think several reasons. Number one, I call it maybe it's a structural problem. That is Chinese rising. American, we cannot say American is declining, but American now is in a very deep, challenging period. During Bill Clinton came into power, our GDP is just 1/8 of that of the United States. When George W. Bush came into power, we become 1/4. When Obama came into power, become half of American total economy. Now, last year when Donald Trump came into power, our GDP is 66% of the United States. That is 2/3. So low, surprisingly, if we keep our current pace, 6% or 6.5% GDP in 5-10 years, and America may be around 3%. So sooner or later, Chinese GDP will surpass the States as number 1 economy in the world. You are economist, we can count. And if that's the case, China will be the first country replacement as number 1 economy after 1894, when America became number 1 economy in the world. So America enjoyed its number 1 economy for more than 1 century. Now, the new arrival of China, this is a structural problem that make American feel anxiety and uneasy, unhappy. So, but we cannot just stop our growth to make America happy. We have to sustain our economic growth. We have our Chinese dream. This is a structural problem. And more importantly, it's not just economically growth. Chinese also militarily, high-tech, even culturally. So America, the first time in history, face a competitor. It's a comprehensive competitor in history. Soviet Union may be just a military threat. Japanese may be just economic or financial challenge. Where from American perspective, Chinese pose comprehensive challenge to the United States. So I call maybe this is a structural problem one cannot just avoid. But the second problem, that is a policy problem. Well, American foreign policy now changing its focus, strategic focus, shifting from Europe, from Central Asia, from Middle East to Asia Pacific. Now Donald Trump called Indo-Pacific. Anyway, American strategic focus now is coming to our part of the world. All of a sudden, we're not so satisfied with the Americans, pouring its energy and forces around us. At the same time, when Americans view China, they see China now not that low profile. Deng Xiaoping is keeping low profile, just economic-driven policy. Now, Chinese not only develop our economy, but also our military. And One Belt, One Road go beyond from Chinese land to all over the world, and more assertively defending our sovereignty in South China Sea. So all those viewed by the states, they saw China is different from 30, 40 years ago, becoming a more productive, more assertive. And both sides are now face to face in our region, in the Asia Pacific. We have no experience in 100 years how to deal with this new situation. No existing experience, no new framework. So both sides feel nervous. This is the second reason for me to explain the relation. And thirdly, I think it's because of the foundation to sustain the relations now collapsed. During the Cold War, Henry Kissinger visited China, President Nixon visited China, normalized the relations. The reason is very simple. It's because we have a common threat, that is the Soviet Union. This sustained the relations. After Cold War, of common economic interest. After September 11th, we have a common threat, countering terrorism. Even during the Obama period, we have climate change as our common interest. But now, what's our common ground? Soviet Union, no more. Bin Laden, no more. Climate change, thanks to Donald Trump's policy, no more. So economic relations should be the pillar of the relations, but now becoming the most difficult problem. So how these relations last long? It's very hard without the new foundation to sustain. That's the problem that we are facing. So all those reasons to explain why the relations becoming problematic. Then in American, then we see Donald Trump and his very hawkish national security team. Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon, and National Pompeo, Secretary of Pompeo, all those are very hawkish. They are not preparing a new arrival of China to welcome, how to accommodate, but want to using a Cold War type of containment policy to deal with the new arrival of the states. We can see this from his newly issued National Security Strategy Report. They view China as a major competitor. They even place China as a major threat more than they put China, Russia the first category of challenge. North Korea and Iran the secondary, and the extreme terrorism the third. The first time after September 11th, put the terrorism the third category of the threat, where put geopolitical rivalry China and Russia as the first threat. So it's a totally change of its national security strategy. Then they want to find a way to deal with China. But after 1 year, we are waiting for what kind of new policy should be. But so far, we didn't see any comprehensive policy.
because it's very hard for Americans to find a new comprehensive policy to deal with China. China is different. We're not Soviet Union. We didn't invasion of Afghanistan. We didn't export the Chinese model. We're just peaceful rise. We have so intertwined of interdependence of relations with the states economically. So hedging contain China means contain itself. We are not Japanese. Japanese surrendered to the states after the 1980s because Japanese is militarily, defensively is part of the states. China is dependent. We are very independent. We have a 1.4 billion hardworking population. We have a very big, geography. And we have a 5,000 long civilization. So we can sustain Americans, sanction like Japan. So we are unique. So using a single way to deal with China is totally impossible. They need to find some new way, new thinking. That's why President Xi once said, how about we build up a new model of major power relations? But Americans get used to its hegemon position in the world for many, many years. They have not yet prepared psychologically, strategically to accommodate with China. Chinese strategy is very simple. We don't want to replace America as the new world leader. We're no interest in doing that. We just want to a better life for Chinese people, because Chinese people suffered the Opium War, Civil War, Japanese War, Korean War for so many, many years. The Chinese dream is want a better life. We don't want to replace America as a new hegemon. So this takes time for American to welcome China. So without a new strategy to deal with China, but don't let China be like this way. So what's the replacement to deal with China? For me to see, that is a trade war. Trade war is not comprehensive, but for Americans to see, maybe it's very useful. Number one is we're pleased Donald Trump's, supporting forces, those less educated grassroots American, people. They just view China stole their jobs rather than criticize Wall Street. China becoming become accusation by the states. So they are very easily to be cheated by Donald Trump. Then they keep voting American Trump as the new president. Mm-hmm. This is so trade war is pleased Donald Trump's voters, supporters. This is one reason. And the trade war is the only, part that can no difference between Democrat Party and the Republican Party. Even Democrat Party win the election, they also want to have trade disputes with China. So, like the border issue between your countries, they are very different. And the trade war, maybe Americans think they have advantages. They control many, many things like chips, the high tech. They use that. So at the very beginning, for me to see, it's not just a trade war. It's much, much more beyond the trade war. It's using trade war as a cover, but behind that has a very deep strategic implication. That's why the negotiation team, when they meet, they have less time talking about trade. What Americans urge us to do is structural reform. It's to change your, growth model, limits your high tech. So the trade war, for me to see, the core of this trade war is two parts. One is hit Chinese high tech, Huawei, ZTE, made in China 2025. All those is no relations to the trade per se. So using trade as an excuse to to hedging against Chinese high-tech development, because this posed a real challenge to American industry. The shirts, the shoes, they don't care too much. But if Chinese produce Huawei, produce Chinese airplane, that's a problem. So using trade war to hit Chinese high-tech. They want China keep in the lower value chain industry forever. But it's impossible. China also want to develop our own high technology. It's quite understandable. Another core part is that want to hit Chinese model. They think Chinese model is very unique. How can Chinese, on the one hand, you have a Communist Party, very unite. On the other hand, you have a very diversified economy, very energetic economy. Socialism and market economy combine with the so-called Chinese characteristics of economy. So 40 years ago, 30 years ago, they think this model cannot be successful. But 40 years prove that this model succeed. On the contrary, American model face very deep problem. Then after this comparison, they have a very big worry. If Chinese model, becoming more and more popular, then many other countries in Latin America and African, they won't learn from American. They'll follow Chinese way. American controlled world is not through the military invasion, but through the model. If no more countries admire American model, but want to learn what the Chinese model looks like, there is a very big challenge. So my conclusion is that the trade war actually is not just trade war. It's high-tech and Chinese model. So that's why we have no way to retreat. If that's the trade, we can sign, we can buy more. We can buy maybe 300 billion American products we can afford. But even if we promise to do that, American negotiating team won't stop sanctions, tariffs. So that's why I said they have some implying strategic goals behind the trade war. So the good news is that after 13 rounds of negotiation, we are coming to agreements, maybe in Chile, according to Donald Trump's unilateral announcement. But even that's the case, this is we can call it a phase one agreement. Some structural problems still remain. So it's a long way for China and the States to struggle. This, because it is not just a trade war. It's how American accept a new China. How China to accommodate a new America. Because America is brand new under Trump. So this takes time. But Chinese, we are very confident. Very confident. The confidence lies in, number one, we think our social economic stability is much better than the States. You can see in China we are very stable, not only economically, but socially, but politically. And secondly, we think Chinese people were more resilient than American, because we suffered so many, pains in the history. So today we are enjoying the best period of development. So Chinese people just can be reunited by the central government. And thirdly, our relations with Russia now is in the best shape, with the European Union in the best shape, with Africa, with Central Asia, even with Latin American in general, now also in the best shape. However, you can see America's relations with Europe, with Japan, with Mexico, with Russia, now in a very bad shape. So all those show that Chinese, we are confident, but we don't want to have trade war forever. We want to have a better U.S.-China relations, but it's not dependent on us. Really depends on American strategic circle if they have already prepared to receive a new rival of emerging China in the long run. So we all know that even Chinese are rising very economically, but we have a long way to go because per capita GDP, Chinese only maybe ranked 80 in the world. Shanghai, Beijing is very advanced, but they go to Xinjiang, Lanzhou, still very under development. So we think we have a long way to go. So American needless to worry too much. It takes another maybe 50 years, even 100 years, because American is unparalleled, given its very unique position. So my conclusion is that maybe U.S.-China relations is now in the difficult period, but we are confident we can find some solution. But this really depends on how American strategic circle rethink the new era, rethink the new dynamic international changing worlds. They're using new thinking because we initiate some new thinking. Another topic, maybe 5 minutes, talking about very brief on One Belt, One Road, because here I listened many times, what is One Belt, One Road? And now there are 130 countries involved into our One Belt, One Road initiative. In Latin America, there are maybe 19 countries, except for several big powers like Mexico. And different countries has different attitudes in this region. Some countries like Brazil are reluctant to be part of that because they are big power, because of American pressure, because they don't want to be involved, and so is Mexico. American pressure is unclear of what One Belt, One Road is. But some other countries like Brazil, like Chile, just positively embrace, just like they embrace TPP and many other things. So what the One Belt, One Road initiative is, for me to say, it is President Xi Jinping's personal initiative. In many good policy, we call Chinese policy, Chinese initiative. But only One Belt, One Road, President Xi mentioned many, many times, it is my initiative. My initiative. He initiated this first in 2013 in Kyrgyzstan. The speech, he said, maybe China and Central Asia, we can revitalize the old Silk Road in the new era. They said we can build up the Silk Road economic zone, economic belt in this part of the world. And the next year, 2014, he visited Indonesia. He delivered another speech. He said, why not we can revitalize the old maritime Silk Road. So we built a new maritime Silk Road. Then landing maritime combined together, we have a One Belt, One Road initiative. It's not just a one belt and one road, because maritime cannot have road. Maybe one road, one belt, one road. More, that's not the case. The important is not the concept, is not the term, but the initiative, the idea. What's the idea behind? I think the behind number one reason is that China is rising, but we don't only want just to rise by our own. We have 14 neighboring countries, landing neighboring countries, 8 maritime neighborings. We have totally 22 neighboring countries. If China just rising unilaterally, then maybe other countries will view China as a threat. So we want Chinese rising benefit to our neighboring countries through Belt and Road. This is a very initiative thinking of our One Belt and Road in 2013, 2014. And then the second thinking is that the globalization. The globalization, because number one, the United States now is low interested in globalization anymore. Number three, European, they are struggling in Brexit, in populist movement. They are low energy to devoting globalization. Then all of a sudden, what's the direction of the globalization? Nobody take care of that. So then Xi Jinping said, okay, I will still stick to globalization. If you are still believing in globalization, free trade, multilateralism, please, we can work in together. That's why more than 100 countries from this initiative, they just not see some investment trade, but see some hope in the future. Without Americans' consideration, without European, consideration, so how can we have the bright hope in the future? She said, okay, that's us. Those Western countries don't care about this anymore. How emerging countries tend to find the new hope. This is the second, I think, reason behind that. And thirdly, I think it's a supplementary of our different advantages. Chinese, we have markets, we have money, we have technology. While Afghanistan, Turkey, Iraq, Central Asian countries, they have the resources, they have requirements, demands. So we can combine this together. It's a win-win solution. So One Belt, One Road, after several years of experience, now is from the initiative becoming a more broad, policy. That is 5 contents. Number 1 is trade relations. Through One Belt, One Road, we deepening the trade relations. Number 2 is infrastructure build up. We help many countries to build a highway, railway, port. Number 3 is a financial cooperation. Number 4 is a political consultation. The One Belt, One Road is not just economic, but political relations. Number 5 is a people-to-people exchanges. So One Belt, One Road initiative is a 5-fold contents. It's not just, so different countries have different demands. Some countries don't need money, but need better political relations, like India. Some other countries, maybe they need infrastructure, like Afghanistan, Iraq. Some countries like Brazil and Mexico, maybe you want most is how to deepen people-to-people relations. Everything can be included in this initiative. So that's why now more than 130 countries getting involved. From this initiative, they find every opportunity to working together. During this time, some countries feel a little bit suspicious in the very beginning. For example, Russia at the very beginning is very alert. They think One Belt, One Road is deepening Chinese relations with Central Asia, while originally it's their part of the world. And Putin has his own plan, that Euro-Asian Economic Zone plan. But after several rounds of negotiation, President Xi and President Putin met several times. Then they get mutual understanding. Why not these two great initiatives integrate Asia together? So Russia still uses Euro-Asian Economic Zone plus One Belt, One Road. Chinese using One Belt, One Road plus Euro-Asian. This is a win-win solution. And Central Asia benefit from China-Russia cooperation. So there's a win-win-win result. So it's the case with many other countries. Now, during the time, we face some challenges also. Number 1 challenge is overseas security. So many investment people going abroad. How to protect this overseas security? This is some new challenge we have to face. Number 2 is that One Belt, One Road initiative is so big, so ambitious, that in some details it's not accurate. So we need to. President Xi last year mentioned that now we need to upgrade One Belt One Road from this abstract concept to more detailed, more accurate planning with the third countries. And number three is a mutual trust. Mutual trust. So One Belt One Road is not Chinese force some other countries to be part. It's a voluntary. We have this initiative. If you want, you can integrate your own plan with us. We can work in together. The final goal is that find a new direction in the new era of the globalization. This is my general explanation of One Belt One Road. So thank you very much. I welcome your comments and questions. Thank you.
We will have some questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your conference. First of all, I couldn't agree more with your remarks on this technological race between the United States and China that is behind the trade war. I think I'm not so sure that they see the Chinese model as a threat, but I'm sure that they see the high-tech evolution of China as a big threat. But what I wanted to ask or to comment, if you could tell us more, I think that it seems that Latin America is not interesting to the largest economies anymore since many years ago. Not the United States, not the European economies, maybe China, but we're not sure. Africa is the continent of the future, maybe. Asia has, because of geopolitical reasons, is very important, and especially I'm relating especially. I'm taking it in account especially the United States and Latin America. It seems that they have forgot since the Obama administrations and even before. They're not so interested in Latin America. So I would like you to ask you what's your view on the place that Latin America specifically could. Of course, they are very different. Brazil is very different than Central America countries, and than Mexico. Argentina is having a lot of problems now, etc. But what's your view on the place that Latin America could have or could play in the One Belt, One Road initiative as a subcontinent, if I may say so? Thanks.
Thank you for your comments and your question. I think Latin America is a very important continent in the world, and today is maybe it's a revitalization of Latin America. In 1980s, Latin America just booming, and the Latin American model is, but all of a sudden, face some difficulties, and then you see some left-wing governments in different countries want to use some other new model, still didn't work well. But now it's maybe the third wave. Some new presidents, not only in Mexico, but in Brazil, many other countries, they find some middle way. But what the middle way looks like, so far, from my personal observation, still that very clear. Chinese way, not exact. So they find their own way. Find out their own way, but which countries can rely on? American want to place a new role in the region, but more because of hedging against the Russia, European, Chinese involved in the region rather than smoothly relations between U.S. and Latin America. They ask more, devote less. So you cannot rely on Donald Trump invest mainly more resources in the region. Well, in terms of this, I think you can have a better relations politically, strategically with the United States. It's quite understandable because you are neighbor, living so close. Quite understandable. We never oppose that. But at the same time, we welcome maybe Latin America developing relations with China in trade, in political, in people-to-people relations. Because China is quite open for doing many things, investment, trade, and some new initiative. So I think maybe two ways Latin American countries can play a unique role. Number one, we can, after the third wave, now it's the third wave is self-reform, you can find some new way to make the multipolar world more colorful. Then we have an Indian way, Chinese way, maybe new Latin American way. It's not just a unilateral world in the future. And secondly, I think you can play some bridge role, middle role between US and China. You can have a good relations with Americans strategically, but also you can have a good relations politically, economically with China. You should not take side. But very importantly, how to make the balance, how to develop relations with the states, while at the same time keep your own independent position. I took a example in Brazil. Brazil is still hesitated for the Huawei's 5G plan. The only reason is because of pressure from the states. So this is not necessary. To show your independent position, while at the same time develop relations with both US and China. This is some of the role that Latin American countries can play. If you play this kind of role, maybe it's good for US and China relations, with no need to be compete every day. We can have third-party corporations maybe in the future. Thank you.
Other question? You can say your name, your institute of affiliation and occupation.
My name is Isaac Minion. I am from here, the Institute of Economics Analysis. You talk about so many things, very important things, very important. One of them is that there is now two big powers. I agree completely with you. Two big powers, no more three. Yeah. And everything in this world became political, economic war. Everything. Even the Road and Belt Initiative. The Road and Belt, you talk so many subjects that we can discuss every one because are very important subjects, but I take only one of them, the Road and Belt Initiative. The Road and Belt Initiative now is becoming also a war. Europe is making a new agreement with Japan about Belt and Road Initiative. And they are interested in Latin American countries to develop belt and roads in Europe, to develop belt and roads that it will develop also in Latin American countries. First of all, I'll take only this subject. What do you think about this initiative of European and Japanese? That is contradictory with your initiative. What is the main subject? Is part of a war between Europe, Japan, and China. I also agree that one of the most challenging problems is the model of the economic development of China. That is because you have developed in 40 years. In 40 years, you from a very, very underdeveloped country into a big power. big power, big economic power, big military power, big technological power. This is a challenge because we normally are in other models, very market-oriented models. This is another subject. What do you think? Why this is a challenge for the American policy, for the Latin American policy, etc. The model that you mentioned is a very important subject to be analyzed. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Europe and Japan now in a very, I cannot use an accurate word, in a very unique position. On the one hand, they still share the same value with the United States. They are allies militarily, and social value the same with America. But on the other hand, they are not feel easy with Donald Trump's America. So American not only have trade war with against China, but also against Europe, Japan. So those countries feel in a dilemma. On the one hand, they cannot get rid of American control or long-term relations. But on the other hand, they have to find some new way. Otherwise, their economy will be suffered. So the best way is that, on the one hand, they still negotiate with the states with more cost from its own interest, because America is much more powerful than Europe and Japan. They learn from Chinese lesson. They don't want to fight last year or 2 years. They are more pragmatic. They just sign the deal, even if sacrifice of his own agricultural interest. But on the other hand, they need to find some new way out. One way is strengthen the bilateral relations between their own, Europe and Japan. They find that they need each other. And the third way is that maybe the new relations with China. So you can see European relations with China now it's in the best in history. Merkel visited China almost 10 times. So it's Macron. And Italy is the first country to join the One Belt, One Road initiative in the Western European countries. And Shinzo Abe now is want to develop relations with China. You can see this year and the next year. And next year, maybe our president, head of state visit. And the next year is Tokyo Olympic Games. They need a better environment. They need a better economic relations. So 3 ways, a deal with the states is a must. New interdependence relations between Europe and Japan themselves, and then find a new way with China. This is their strategy for me to see. And other countries like India also reluctant to be part of One Belt, One Road. I think the very reason is two. One reason, India also views a very big power in the region. Now it's enjoying the best international environment because not that threatening than China. So American view India as a new partner, Japanese, European. So it's enjoys a better environment. It's not that urgent to join China's Belt and Road. And another special reason is Pakistan. Pakistan, they have some territorial disputes. Chinese-Pakistan Belt and Road initiative sometimes related to those disputed area like Kashmir. This hurt Indians' national interest. So because of that, politically, embrace One Belt and Road is incorrectly. However, this is not means India did not want to develop economic relations with China. So Modi, President Xi just visited India. They have a very good personal relations. They find some new way to develop our trade and political relations without using the very name of One Belt, One Road. It doesn't matter. It's an initiative, it's a concept. We do not want to use this cover to cover everything. This, as for the model, Chinese, we never use Chinese model by ourselves. Actually, Chinese model is used by foreigners. They call Chinese as a model. We are very self-constrained to using the concept of model because we know that this is very sensitive. We learned the experience from Soviet Union because Soviet Union want to export its socialism model. If Chinese didn't buy, then we have a problem. So today we don't want to sell our model. We just say that in the past 40 years opening up and reform, and also plus 30 years of Chairman Mao's era, because we have 70th anniversary of PRC. After ups and downs experience, we find okay, Chinese path is not that bad. Originally, we are not that confident, but after 40, 70 years success, now we are the first time we feel confident. We think, okay, our path, our way is not bad, but still we need some theory, some concept, some. We're not good at theory, no like American neoliberalism, realism. So far we don't have any kind of this kind of a thing, but this takes time for us to conclude, but still premature for us to export. But this not necessarily means we won't share our experience with those countries who want to learn from us. So I don't think Chinese model is a threat. Chinese model is still in practice. Chinese model, just like Mexican model, Brazilian model, Russian model, all those are competing. Maybe Chinese model is fit Chinese own national condition most, not necessarily fit your condition. We think even many other countries criticize Chinese model, like using Western standard, Western democracy, Western market economy. But we think so far, this model fit us most. So if you copy American model, maybe will collapse 10 years ago. If we stick to Soviet model, maybe we are still a poor country. Now we combine socialism with Chinese characteristics, with market economy, and combine and then learn how to make political democratization under Chinese characteristics. Those things combine, I think, is the so-called Chinese model. But I think it's still in practice. It's too early to call it's a mature model to be learned by some other countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Tu, for your conference. My name is José Luis Valdés from the Center for Research on North America of UNAM. I am one of those who think that Donald Trump has not a strategy at all in terms of foreign policy. Actually, he has no foreign policy. It's a chaotic policy. Very much in part as a result of what you said about the hawks. The people that surround Donald Trump are not precisely the best ones in terms of knowing how to recover the center of decisions. The centrality of decisions, the rational choice, is being lost. So you have that in Afghanistan, you have that in Syria right now, and you have it in the relationship with the Soviet Union. You have it in Latin America, where the TPP was the great opportunity for the United States to expand and to have for the first time a Latin American policy. Donald Trump decided to quit and withdraw from the TPP. Now, I think that what we are witnessing here in the trade war between China and the United States is a war of giants.
of two giants that are trying to accommodate themselves, but especially China. The United States is not finding the way to accommodate with China and to let China have its own, to have its own place in terms of trade, foreign policy, investment, and the like. I very much agree with Dr. Basabe when he said that and with you as well, that with the high-tech industry is actually the main reason why this confrontation is taking place. Now, since this situation is going not to disappear, I mean, Donald Trump has no remedy. In that sense, what will you think about the political process in the United States? The best scenario for China, what will be? The Democrats coming into power, Trump going, or being actually impeached? What will be the Chinese view on the best scenarios for the recovering this rational center of decision that is being lost? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are very much realistic. We know that it's a bipartisan system in the States. No matter which party came into power, the general policy should be no big change. In terms of China policy, they have some consensus. Politically, they view China is a non-Western, country. Economically, they see China is a competitor, and militarily, maybe view China as a threat. So, in these general issues, they have a bipartisan consensus. So I call this is a structural problem. It's not because of which party, which person, but still, I think a different party, different person, different president has different policy, which maybe can be used to develop the relations. For example, Donald Trump's problem is that they dismiss all the channels. They don't want TPP. They don't want the left. They don't want climate change. And before him, with Obama, we have bilateral relations between U.S. and China. We have 103 different channels officially, including people-to-people, human rights dialogue, cybersecurity dialogue. But all of a sudden, when he came into power, he kicked all those 100 dialogues away. It seems today the only dialogue is the trade negotiation team and President Xi and Trump's personal meeting. Those only two. So from 100 to only two, to sustain the two big powers is unimaginable. Maybe Democratic Party, maybe they are more interested in developing different dialogues. This is useful for crisis management, avoidance. This is more mature relations rather than ups and downs. So in terms of this, I think Democratic Party may be better in this. But as you know, in trade, maybe almost the same. But maybe less using tariffs, but more using united front. TPP again, with the Europe, Japanese united together hedging against China, rather than just using unilateral tariffs. So the outcome may be the same. The Democratic Party, is very interested in talking about human rights, Tibetan human rights issue. Donald Trump, it seems, no interested in that regard. So we cannot say which party is good for China. Both parties has good part or bad part. So the relations really rely on the strategic mutual understanding, people to people, economic to economic, rather than rely on some specific party and the presidents. This is my general answer to your question. Actually, today American politics are so unpredictable. So we don't want to predict. We just have different scenarios. Prepare worst scenario, pursue the best scenario. That's the mature policy for us to deal with America in the future. Thank you.
Other question?
Hi, good morning. Well, thank you very much by your presentation. I will focus on the foreign affairs of China and Hong Kong. As we have seen, is a rising conflict in the last few months, and I would like to know, because as we know, Hong Kong will expire the region as administrative special region in 2045. So it's like 20 years to happen thanks, and we don't know exactly what will happen, if Hong Kong will become independent or it will become united with China. And my main question is the Chinese Communist Party has a real focus on the agenda of what will happen with Hong Kong and what measures have been taken now that we have seen the rising conflict and tension between both countries. Thank you very much.
You are a student or teacher?
¿Usted es estudiante o profesor? Le pregunto.
Sorry?
Are you a student or professor?
Yeah, I mean, between China and Hong Kong.
What's your
Well,
name?
my
Name
name?
yourself. Yeah, name yourself.
You are a student?
No, I'm not a student. I have a bachelor in international relations. No, I'm not studying. I'm research.
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 Yes.
Okay. Because it looks so young. Thank you for raising this very hard question. Because we long view Hong Kong as our internal affairs, domestic affairs. As a kicker, as an Institute of International Studies, we didn't cover Hong Kong, Taiwan issue that much. We cover most U.S., Russia, European. But Hong Kong today, the Hong Kong issue becoming more and more, international, given the current situation. So we have to pay attention on this issue. But this not necessarily means I have a more accurate, authoritative answer to you, because I'm not an expert on Hong Kong. But as a Chinese, I can see that the Hong Kong issue is very complicated. Before it become a problem, it seems very easy. It's only 7 million population, metropolitan, close to mainland, and sovereignty belongs to mainland. So, and the per capita GDP is 8 times more on mainlanders. So we take it for granted it should be no problem. But all of a sudden becoming a problem, then we review this and gradually find, okay, it's very, very complicated. Number one, we have one China, two systems, from 1997, we regained its sovereignty from Great Britain back to China. We promise that given the legacy, so we promise, okay, sovereignty speaking, we are one country, but you can keep your own capitalism system. Then we constitute some laws, frameworks. We think, okay, it's good, you just do it. Let the governor govern yourself. Because during that time, we have much more important things, mainlanders, to do. We have a reform our state-owned economy. We have worked very hard to enter in WTO. We need to develop new relations with the states. So Hong Kong issue, we think, let it be. Let the governor to help itself. Let the 7 billion Hong Kongese to govern yourself. But the problem's nice in that. Because the problem is that the sovereignty is back. But the sovereignty today, when we review just what is Chinese sovereignty means, just national flag. Just we're sending some PRA forces stationed in Hong Kong to representing our sovereignty. and then governor, and his teams or maybe less than 20 people. Except for those several things, everything exact the same with before 1997. So education system still English, judicial system still English. You know how many English passport holders in Hong Kong? More than half of Hong Kongese people has Great Britain's passports. So you cannot say they are purely Hong Kongese. They can say they're both Hong Kongese and English. And there are less million, maybe Vietnamese. The both people, Vietnamese is very strong, So we call that Hong Kongese govern themselves. But what the Hong Kongese means, today we need to rethink. Hong Kongese means nationality should be Chinese Hong Kong, rather than you are English passports holder living in Hong Kong. So this should be redefined. Otherwise, those street guys, young generations, they don't think they are Chinese. They think they're Hong Kongese. But the Hong Kongese means independent from mainland. The sovereignty is very ambiguous. Originally when Hong Kong was governed by English, the governor has all authority to do everything they want, including sending police to attack demonstration students. Judicial system. But today, self-constraint of one China, two systems, which just there are a lot to using many forces to deal with the situation. That's the dilemma. That's the dilemma. The reason is that we think we are very responsible. We don't want to use some ways. Otherwise, it's very easy to make the situation stable overnight, because the 7 billion population in Chinese is not so amazing. The Chinese PRA in Hong Kong, they do nothing so far. They're self-constrained. We want Hong Kongese governor, Hong Kongese people resolve the issue by themselves. The first, we'll wait and see. And we'll see they are using their, we think they are not using 100% of their energy and resources. For example, the judicial system, sometimes the marks people do some criminal things. The police, seize them. Just one night, the other day, the judicial system, 释放怎么说？就是release. The other day. So how can this system can punish those criminals in Hong Kong? So this is just one example to show the complexity of the issue. So to be frank, Chinese government do want to resolve the problem, but it's so complicated. It takes time, and the problem is that many Western media just unilaterally report the other side of the story. They report as a policeman, from our knowledge. On the contrary, the policeman is very limited role. They have only more than 10,000 policemen in Hong Kong. They cannot, manage the situation. 1 million, demonstrators in the street. They are the weaker side. The policeman is the weaker side. But the low Western media reported this. They're just waiting for the Chinese mainlander governors, leaders, made some big problem, make big mistakes, so that they can use this to hedging against China other than just using trade war. The trade war is not enough for making China surrender. Maybe Hong Kong, maybe is a good card for play. We know this. But we are confident. We are confident because most of Hong Kongese people just used by those rebellion forces. And we trust the Hong Kong governor and his team, her team, can manage this with the help from mainlanders. And we are the bottom line. We have forces stationed in Hong Kong. So if they go beyond, break the bottom line, red line, I think we have no way but to deal with that. But so far, we think still lots of room. One example to share with you is that the education, all those textbooks from primary school to high school to university school, still added by Hong Kongese themselves. Mainlanders no relations with that at all. So why only 20 years old young guys go to street? Because from their childhood, their education is totally different from mainlanders. We want to show two systems, but two systems means what? We need to rethink. For example, the Mandarin. The Hong Kongese, you go to an official service. What you need is to test your English and Cantonese. They do not need to test the Mandarin, which are 普通话, Chinese mainlanders. Actually, today, if you speak Mandarins when you visit Hong Kong, you will be discriminated by Hong Kongese because you cannot speak Cantonese. Where you can, if you can speak English, you will be well treated when you go to restaurant. If you speak Mandarin like us, the Hong Kongese just view you like an enemy. So this is education. So if your sovereignty means at least you need to speak Mandarin. This is our national language. It's not just writing, but so lots of things waiting us to review. But to be frank, it's not fault. It's not a force of. So far, Chinese government, I think, performed well. I think, but it takes time. We are confident, but we need to review our policy because it lasted 20 more years. We need to review and rethink. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
It's a totally off record. Okay, thank you.
We really like to thank for this very complete presentation about key issues for the Chinese foreign policy, especially the U.S. and China relations. As you showed us, the U.S. and China have had 40 years of complex and rich relations, and how those relations have been especially complicated in the last U.S. government. You pointed two key factors: one, the profile of the Trump voter, and then how the Trump administration is trying to hit the Chinese high tech, and second, the Chinese model. And then it was also very interesting to hear how you understand the U.S.-China problem as a structural problem, given the rise of China in the last decades, and then a policy problem, and then which is the common ground, no, to see the future. I also would like to highlight that you are showing us that we need to find a new thinking in terms of globalization. I really think that China is being very, is really proposing a new alternative for globalization, and China has like all the skills, all the resources in order to make such a big proposal. Saying, well, we don't have America anymore because they are concentrated in America first. Then we don't have the European Union anymore as we used to have it since the Brexit and their internal problems. And then given a win-win solution, well, China is proposing the One Belt, One Road initiative. So, President, we really, on behalf of UNAM, like to thank for this great presentation. Thank you.
A ver, ¿saludas de una vez?
Wow. Stop.
So we prepare the poster of the conference.
Looks like a great leadership.
So we understand we probably you have already your logage done, but we can find a way to send it to you later. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Very interesting presentation. That is very important for development.
Ya cumpliste con la Alicia entregando. Ahora a ver.
Es que sí, está súper complicado eso.
Cómodo, bultoso y demás.
Sí. Ah, sí, claro. Sí, vamos a tomar una foto del grupo, ¿no? Por favor.
A ver, vente. Deja presentarte, Rubén. Rubén, our director of the Center for Latin American Studies.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Sorry, too much.
No. Very good. Yeah.
No, gracias por venir.
Welcome to Ten people. They all can speak Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much. It was very illustrating what you said. I'm looking forward to seeing you in China very soon.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thank you.
For preparation, just speak from my heart. Less from my